You know, the last General Assembly, he was a great deal of counsel, and the Senate will certainly, in the state of Ohio, will certainly miss his direction and knowledge on marijuana, but we'll continue forward to make this better in the state of Ohio. But I just want to acknowledge Kirk's presence and his absence here today. So many of the provisions in the bill may look familiar as they largely reflect Senate passed House Bill 86 last General Assembly. First, the bill merges Ohio's medical and adult use marijuana programs under the Division of Cannabis Control, which voters recently established with the passage of Issue 2. Consolidating both programs under the division will allow for consistent requirements regarding testing, packaging, labeling, advertising, especially those related to protecting children. It also provides for streamlining licensing standards and general compliance procedures, cutting down on bureaucracy, red tape, and government waste. It is important to note the bill ensures those entities that were issued license under Issue 2 maintain their licenses. Many have already been granted and are operational. The bill also addresses several public safety concerns as banning public smoking, prohibiting driving while the driver or any passenger is using marijuana, and ensuring homegrown marijuana is not grown at residents that operate in-home child care programs. Further, the bill clarifies the ability of local law enforcement to investigate alleged violations and harmonize employer protections regarding drug-free workplace policies. Much like what our chamber previously supported, Senate Bill 56 increases the excise tax on adult marijuana from 10% to 15%, but the revenue flowed to the GRF. The current 10% tax included the initiated statute is among the lowest adult use marijuana taxes in the country and does not cover the societal cost of the newly legalized drug. I look forward to the continued discussions on this component of the legislation. In short, this bill is about government efficiency, consumer and child safety, and maintaining access to voter approval adult use marijuana. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Senator Huffman, for your testimony. Are there any questions? Senator Reineke.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Senator Huffman. I think that this is a very important piece of legislation that we need to continue. I was disappointed when we couldn't advance it past the Senate a couple years ago. One of the provisions that I particularly liked was the tax piece from the standpoint that it did not get into the black market. Could you explain a little bit more about where the revenues would go and how you came up with the calculations? Thank you.
Sure, through the chair to the senator. So in the last General Assembly, the bill that we put out had about 14 different places that the money would go. There's been discussion on spending money on jails, law enforcement training, things at BCI, poison control, and different things like that. The current position this bill takes is everything goes to the General Revenue Fund. And I look forward to a debate and a discussion here in the Senate to say what are the things that are important. But I think what's ultimately the reason to go to the General Revenue Fund is I think this General Assembly should decide how to spend approximately $300 million. This General Assembly, we should not tie in that we're going to start paying for all these things that the locals are currently paying for, such as jails. And I believe it's okay to infuse money in there, but to guarantee them a revenue source going forward would certainly handcuff future General Assemblies. So I think we need to allocate those going forward, and especially, this is somewhat of a sin tax, that and that we need to try to target things that like expungements and poison control, that because of the use of marijuana, those needs in society are going to be needed more. And so we should take some of that money and spend it for those things that are being affected by marijuana.
Very good. All right. Senator DeMora.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, Senator Huffman, Just since I was not handed this bill until I was getting the elevator walking up for this meeting and didn't have a chance to review this, even though I was the ranking person on this committee last year that worked with the majority on crafting Senate Bill 86. First off, is it true that from just my brief perusal of this, the voter initiative, what would this do? This eliminates level 3 licenses, what the voters specifically voted for. It lowers THC levels. It mandates that you can only smoke in private residences, and it takes all the money to GRF. So we're basically telling the voters, are we telling them to screw you? You don't know what you're talking about. You passed it with overwhelming majority in the state, but we know better than they did what they were voting on?
Through the chair to the senator, I think that it says that, look, we still have recreational adult use. I believe that it goes around the fringes to correct some of the societal needs in this. I can have this discussion. I don't want to sit at a ball game and the guy next to my 9-year-old kid smoking marijuana. I think that's wrong. That's what the voters voted for. And I also think that many of the things, not many, but part of the distribution of the money most likely is unconstitutional. And so trying to get around the edges to make it better for the state of Ohio. So I wouldn't say we're gutting everything. We're trying to improve it. I mean, I look at this would take it down from 6 plants to 2 plants. So the ballot initiative to me, right now you can have someone can grow 6 plants, their spouse can grow 6, but law enforcement can't enforce the law till you get to 23. That absolutely doesn't make sense to me. And if you look at, to give a point of reference, so 6 plants. If you know how to grow marijuana, and I know it's not the easiest thing to grow, a plant will grow 6 joints a year. Times 6 plants, that's 3,600 joints a year for one person. That's 10 joints a day. To me, that you're just contributing to the black market, because what do you get? I mean, even if you smoke 3 joints a day, what are you going to do with the other 7? You're going to feed the black market with that. And so I agree. People have said, well, homegrown. No, the people did vote for homegrown. I think that this is an example that we're trying to move it into a little bit more reasonable, continue to have adult use, but a little bit more reasonable usage.
Go ahead, follow up.
So one should be quick and easy, and one both should be. First, are we doing anything in this bill about hemp? Because we were attempting to do something with hemp last session. Does this bill, because again, I haven't been able to read it, does it do anything about the hemp that's being sold that we heard this on the committee being sold at the corner store and gas stations? I mean, I don't know the answer to it.
The chairman to the senator. That's next week.
Okay.
So a little disagree. I've heard the speakers recently said that he would like to put the 2 subjects together. I disagree with him somewhat. I find both of them to be very complex issues, and I don't want to get weighed down and say, hey, well, look, we can come to an agreement with hemp, but we're kind of stuck on marijuana or vice versa. So, speaking to the president, we're going to proceed in the Senate as 2 different bills, and I'll introduce that sometime next week. But in this bill is essentially nothing to hemp, to answer your question.
Follow up.
Again, sorry, I did not know, because I was asking. I honestly did not know. That's why I was asking if they were in conclusion. And my last question is, on Senate Bill 86, one of the things that, as a caucus, that we worked with the now president, then majority leader on, was expungement of all the people that had been convicted of these crimes in the past that now are made legal by this voting thing. Is there anything? I don't see anything in the, at least in the LSC summary that deals with expungement, because I know from our caucus standpoint, that was one of the bigger things that got us to support Senate Bill 86 unanimously, and I don't know if is that in there or not, because I don't see it in the analysis.
Chairman, to the senator, I believe in the current version there isn't, but certainly, my discussions with the president, it is how to get there is what we need to discuss further. him and others have been against total blanket expungement, in the sense that there should be something, in his thoughts, there should be something active to be done for that expungement. But through this committee process, we'll certainly be open to any type of amendments to do something along that line.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I'd just like to make a comment that while the voters did pass issue 2, and we do now have this adult use recreational marijuana, it is incumbent upon us as a General Assembly to make sure that it is done responsibly. Very similar to like cigarettes, right? We want to make sure that cigarettes are not marketed to children and children don't get them. So very similar here in your bill. I see that they're prohibiting being marketed by any graphic picture or drawing that bears any resemblance to a cartoon character or a popular figure that can't be designed as fruit or something particularly attractive to children. So there's some very common sense elements in here which I think will help protect the youth in Ohio. So thank you for bringing this forward.
If I can comment, Chairman, that no, I totally agree. And the people that, the initiative statutes put it in the revised code so that the General Assembly, I believe now and in the future, can revise it as part of the revised code, and chose to do that rather than in the Constitution that we couldn't do that. So I think we're using the avenue that we were given to us, and they foresaw in the future the need for this.
Correct. Very good. All right. Any additional questions for the sponsor? All right, seeing none, thank you for your sponsor testimony. I had marked this bill for both sponsor and proponent, so we will now move on to the proponent portion of Senate Bill 56. I'll call up Steve Barnett from the Ohio Prosecuting Attorneys Association. Mr. Barnett, welcome to committee.
Thank you, Chairwoman Rogner, Vice Chair Gavarone, Ranking Member Blackshear, members of the Senate General Government Committee. My name is Steve Barnett, and I'm the Carroll County Prosecuting Attorney and one of the current officers of the Ohio Prosecuting Attorneys Association. It is my distinct honor and high privilege to appear before you today on behalf of Ohio's prosecutors to offer our support for Senate Bill 56. Ohio's prosecutors have long been and continue to be committed to public safety and protecting the communities that we serve. While we opposed State Issue 2 that legalized adult use marijuana, we respect the wishes of the voters, and we seek to work with this body to further protect our communities, including some of our most vulnerable citizens, our children, so that our adult use marijuana laws maintain public safety yet balance the wishes of the electorate. We are pleased that Senate Bill 56 begins that discussion, and I would like to discuss with you 4 key points of Senate Bill 56 of why it addresses many of our concerns and why we support this bill. First, the safety and the need to protect children exposed to marijuana in any form have been tantamount to our views. Children are our strongest asset, and they shape the next generation. If the core of our democracy is for the current generation to leave it better than we found it, then society's strong investment in kids is how we accomplish it. Ohio's county prosecutors have advanced the sale of marijuana, or have advocated the sale of marijuana in any form or method that is considered attractive to children or that otherwise encourages children to use marijuana must be addressed. And we are pleased that this bill, as introduced, addresses this concern in proposing Section 3797.09D1 to prohibit any form of medical marijuana or adult use marijuana that is attractive to children. This bill would prohibit dispensing or selling marijuana in any form or likeness that contains characteristics of a realistic or fictional human, animal, or fruit, and any artistic renderings thereof that would appeal to children. This legislation also authorizes the Division of Cannabis Control to adopt rules regulating advertisement to prevent or promote illegal activity to minors or that target or mislead children into using marijuana. This is a reasonable common sense approach similar to other prohibitions that target people underage or other at-risk populations like cigarette smoking, alcohol consumption, drug driving, and gambling, to say the least. And for good measure, there are even regulations on attorney advertising. It only makes sense that adult use marijuana be subject to the limits on exposure to children. Second, Senate Bill 56 enacts 3796.062 that addresses transportation of adult use and homegrown marijuana in motor vehicle transport. Nothing in State Issue 2 restricted how adult-use marijuana or homegrown marijuana could be transported, thereby making marijuana accessible to vehicle drivers and passengers. This bill, as introduced, addresses transportation of legal marijuana by requiring it to be kept in its original, unopened packaging, storing it in the trunk or in the areas of the vehicle not easily accessible by the driver or passenger when there is no trunk. This bill also establishes similar rules for marijuana paraphernalia. Ohio has long established open container laws regarding alcohol in motor vehicles. Common sense mandates a similar role for adult use and medical marijuana access in motor vehicles. Ensuring that motorists do not have access to intoxicating substances while driving is critical to highway safety. We can all agree that we would seek to deter and punish impaired driving. Regulating the transport of marijuana is critical to that. Third, Senate Bill 56 limits homegrown marijuana to 6 plants rather than 12 plants as previously enacted under State Issue 2. Senate Bill 56 would also prohibit the transfer of homegrown marijuana. Once again, these are issues of community safety in a larger sense, as some cannabis plants can produce up to 17.5 ounces or more than 1 pound of cannabis per plant under the right conditions. Home grow at these rates or amounts creates a risk that that will create a risk in the state that will create a thriving black market for access to product. This could include contraband sales as well as avoidance of regulation and tax obligations with the lawful sale. If a black market for drugs exists, it will invite the criminal element. Black market also exists increased likelihood of tainted marijuana that risks personal safety to users and that they may not be aware of what else they are ingesting. That black market marijuana will find its way into the hands of persons younger than 21, including minor children, and a black market of marijuana reduces lawful purchases from appropriate dispensaries, which circumvents and diminishes taxes and projected tax revenues. Finally, Senate Bill 56 addresses penalties, and the penalties for offenses related to unlawful transportation are consistent with and align with Ohio's OVI penalties by requiring mandatory minimum consecutive days in jail, mandatory fines, and driver's licenses suspensions, which are directly attributable to the conduct of operating the motor vehicle. Similar to OVI penalties, there are increasing penalties for subsequent violations. Equally as important, this bill also criminalizes providing false information and providing identification for adult use purchases, again, similar to provisions involving alcohol and cigarettes. Finally, it is critical that whatever changes are made continue to authorize prosecutors to prosecute people for marijuana possession, trafficking, or cultivation when that activity falls outside the scope of what is permitted by the adult use regulatory scheme. And we believe that this legislation achieves this goal. What Senate Bill 56 does is codify common sense. It takes into account reasonable public safety and balances them with the wishes of the electorate when it comes to adult use and homegrown marijuana. Ohio's county prosecutors remain committed to keeping our communities and our most vulnerable of our population safe, and we can say that Senate Bill 56 begins to help us with that. We look forward to working with the sponsors to advance these much-needed adjustments to State Issue 2 and set forth a reasonable, common-sense approach to these important issues. And I would also follow that there are, with the discussion with expungements, there are certainly laws on the books already that allow for sealing of marijuana convictions after 6 months. With that, I thank you for allowing me to speak today. I will be happy to attempt to answer any questions that the committee may have, specifically if you want to know a fun fact about me.
Very good. Are there any questions for this witness? Senator Huffman.
Just a quick comment. You did correct me. I misspoke. This bill goes from 12 in a household, 23 before you prosecuted, to clarify only 6 total in a household, and then you can be prosecuted for going forward. So you did correct me. I just wanted to acknowledge that.
I didn't intend to do that.
No, I was wrong. So it's 6 plants in the household. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Senator Mora.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, sir, I'm wondering, you represent all the prosecuting attorneys, but inside your own organization, is this more of a, I guess, a conflict between the urban prosecutors and the rural county prosecutors? Because I will be blunt and tell you that I don't think the Franklin County prosecutor is going to prosecute somebody for smoking a joint in a city park, whereas in a smaller county, they might get prosecuted for that. So are we setting up two sets of rules and two sets of enforcement? Because again, I've talked to dozens of members of the Columbus Police Department, and they're not going to cite somebody for smoking a joint walking down the street, as this bill would now mandate that they do that. But in other jurisdictions, they certainly might. So isn't this a conflict of the organization about maybe urban versus rural again, or not?
To the chair, to the senator, I don't believe so, because county prosecutors across the state, some have exclusively felony jurisdiction, some in the rural counties and even larger counties still have municipal misdemeanor prosecution jurisdiction. So I think prosecutors across the board would look at this issue in terms through the lens of public safety to begin with at all levels, regardless of who has the obligation to prosecute it.
All right, very good. Any additional questions? Not, I have one for you. So the bill increases the excise tax from 10% to 15%. But then it says something interesting. It also says the bill imposes a 15% excise tax on the illegal sale of marijuana by an unlicensed seller to a consumer. Just curious on your thoughts on that one. I would think there should be more than just a 15% tax if they're doing something illegal.
To the chair, I think that's a discussion that we would have to have ongoing as it goes through this body in terms of where the policy guidelines are on that. And I'm sure we would be glad to weigh in once we've had some more information.
Great, thank
on
you.
what you're thinking. Yes.
All right, any additional questions? All right, seeing none, thank you for your testimony today.
Thank you.
Our next witness is Rick Carfagna from the Ohio Chamber of Commerce and a former colleague in the House. Welcome to committee.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair. Chair Rogner, Vice Chair Gavarone, Ranking Member Blackshear, members of the Senate General Government Committee, I appreciate the opportunity to testify as a proponent of Senate Bill 56. I'm Rick Carfagna, Senior Vice President of Government Affairs for the Ohio Chamber of Commerce. The Ohio Chamber is the state's leading business advocate. We represent over 8,000 companies that do business in the state, and our mission is to aggressively champion free enterprise, economic competitiveness, and growth for the benefit of all Ohioans. With the passage of Issue 2, the OCC understands that this is new ground for everyone with a statute that is complex and full of nuanced policy measures. And I would commend the Ohio Department of Commerce for the work that they've done to get this new industry up and running into a legitimized business. And so we are here to acknowledge that, but also to draw attention to, again, some lingering things as a result of Issue 2. And because it was an initiated statute, the Ohio General Assembly does have the discretion to make any statutory adjustments that govern the use of recreational marijuana in its emerging marketplace. And of all the provisions that are targeted for revision in this bill, my testimony today is limited really to the three that